Hey, Jordan.
Hey, Eli. How's it going?
It's going just fine. I'm a little cold, a little dry, but that's just Vermont in February.
Very dry.
Yes.
Very cold. We don't have to lie about that.
We don't have to.
Be honest.
Yes. Well, we're back. We're in a new space. We've got a brand new office and a brand new season of the Vermont's Voice podcast.
We made it to season 2. We made it to 2026. This is a big deal.
This certainly is, yeah. So our longtime viewers will recognize this is not where we've shot in the past. Now, instead of one host, you've got two. And we're going to be doing things a little bit differently this season, taking some deeper dives into the legislative issues that VPIRG works on. Now, today's episode is going to be kind of a high-level overview of what we've got in store for the 2026 legislative session. And spoiler alert, it's a lot about affordability.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. There are a number of VPIRG legislative priorities that we've got to share today. We'll also be joined later by our executive director, Paul Burns, who can really speak broadly to what we're doing, why it matters for the state and beyond. So I think it's going to be a great conversation. But before we get into that, we should probably introduce ourselves for folks who maybe are new to the podcast.
Definitely. So my name is Elijah Kushen. I'm the media director here at VPIRG. I use he, him pronouns.
I'm Jordan Heiden. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Democracy Vermont campaign director, also with VPIRG.
And for those of you listening to this podcast, you should know there's also a video component. We will do our best to try to describe what's happening visually on screen when it's relevant. But really, you should, if you're able, go check out the video version of the podcast.
I agree. Much more interesting to have the visual component.
I certainly agree. Well, without further ado, why don't we jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it. This is Vermont's Voice. All right, so as we mentioned earlier in the intro, we've got a lot to cover today. And I'm personally interested, Eli, in us kicking this off with healthcare, because I believe there's a bit of an update that you've got to share. So can we start there?
Absolutely. This is honestly one of the more exciting things to talk about. I'm sure folks at home are aware that Vermont's had a bit of a healthcare crisis.
You don't say.
Yeah. Costs are going up. Insurance premiums are through the roof, but hopefully there's a little relief on the horizon. What we're focusing on this session is prescription drug pricing. And those prices are out of control for many people. But Oregon and Washington, the states, have actually teamed up to offer a solution. And it's this multi-state collaboration project called ArrayRx, which uses state buying power to actually negotiate lower drug prices. And the program is working. It is tested. And it's open to other states.
Is Vermont a part of that?
Not yet, and that's what we're working on. So for Vermont to join ArrayRx, they would need legislative approval. That's where VPIRG comes in, because passing bills is kind of our specialty. So we are working with the Vermont House right now on a bill called H577. Right now it's in the at least as of filming, in the House Healthcare Committee, and lawmakers need to hear directly from Vermonters struggling with drug costs. So if you at home listening have been struggling with prescription drug costs, shoot us a note, because we would love to share your story with the legislature. Now, this effort is being spearheaded by Treasurer Mike Pichek. Those who are in the know about the Vermont healthcare conversation might remember the big push to eliminate medical debt that he did last year. So this is very much in line with that, trying to make healthcare more affordable for Vermonters across the board. There is similar legislation that's also in the Senate right now, but what I want to focus on is that if Vermont joins this ArrayRx Vermont joins this ArrayRx plan, all Vermonters will be able to access a discount card. And I actually have some solid numbers that I can share in terms of what discounts Vermonters could expect to see. So we're talking about 20% off on brand name drugs, But what's really exciting for me is 80% savings on generics. That's a huge amount of money, especially for folks who are uninsured right now because the price of that is astronomical as well. So we really hope that folks are going to see that joining ArrayRx is this practical, immediate way to reduce healthcare costs.
I love it. I hope we are able to succeed in that. It sounds really important.
Me too. So stay tuned for further updates. We might end up doing a dedicated episode on the subject. But again, if you do have a story about really high prescription drug costs that you'd like to share, drop us a line. You can reach me at ekushen@vpirg.org. We'll throw that up on the screen. And we would love to share your story with the relevant people in the legislature. So, Jordan, I hear we're working on a lot of stuff in the climate space, too, and a lot of that has to do with affordability as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot happening in the climate space right now. 2 areas of focus I'd really like to touch on today. The first being portable plug-in solar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you know, we are often the first in the country to pass different types of legislation. Vermont is a forefront in many ways. However, with this, we might have to settle for second. I think that's okay.
I think so.
Utah has already claimed the first space, but we'll do what we can to get in right after them. But what we're hoping to do in the state of Vermont is to enable portable, affordable, accessible plug-in solar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of buzzwords. But I'm going to explain that and why it's so important. Because first of all, if you're a renter, you're more or less locked out of the solar transition,
Mm-hmm.
right? You really just aren't able to make those decisions if you want to get into solar or not. You might also have a house that just doesn't hit sunlight in the way that you are hoping it might, or your backyard's not suitable for solar. So having small scale portable solar options is a great alternative. And so what that looks like is being able to plug into an external wall outlet,
Mm-hmm.
and you could put it on your back patio, your porch, against a fence, a wall. It's just a lot more accessible and flexible in terms of how you can access that energy.
That's really cool. And from what I've heard about these portable solar systems, you don't need like a big installation crew or someone from the power company to come and hook this all up. It's about as plug and play as you can get.
Absolutely. Instant energy. And we've done some events at the State House and in other places with our coworkers. And our colleague Ben literally just carries the panel to the events. Like it's that portable.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with some of these systems, and portable is really the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
You can get like an optional battery pack too that helps during blackouts, but
Mm-hmm.
in theory, you should be able to just plug these panels directly into your wall.
Yeah.
And position them wherever you want, off your porch, lay them in your front yard.
Right.
But you don't have to do a full rooftop installation.
Yeah, not at all. And so that's what we're pushing here in the state. As I mentioned, Utah has already taken the lead with this. It's very common in certain parts of Europe too. So we've already seen some early success with this. And what we need to do right now is pass legislation to sort of remove the red tape from the process, right? So no permits, no fees, no wait times. We just want folks to have instant access to that solar generation. It's important.
Cutting through red tape, that seems like it should be a winner across the political spectrum.
I think so, right?
Hopefully.
I'm hopeful about it. So really good progress so far on portable plug-in solar. I also want to touch on appliance efficiency standards because those are really important too. And folks don't necessarily know this, but it's actually one of the best ways that Vermonters can both save money and cut back on emissions.
I think that you see those tags when you're at like a big outlet store, right?
Yeah.
That like shows you how much money you could save year to year.
Exactly. Think of like all of the most common appliances. They have efficiency standards for that reason. And so it's important that we maintain those standards moving forward. Now, typically how this works is they will set a minimum efficiency level for the most common types of appliances. So that means every appliance has a requirement, a threshold that it needs to meet in terms of efficiency. And these standards have actually saved Americans more than $1 trillion in energy spending since their creation.
That's a huge amount of money.
It's a huge amount of money. So they're not kidding about the savings. It's very real. Unfortunately, as you might be able to imagine, the Trump administration is working to roll back those standards. Disappointed but not surprised, right? And so we are working to adopt all of the current federal appliance efficiency standards into Vermont state rule. Why? Because if those federal rollbacks do take place, Vermonters will still be protected, therefore still saving energy and costs and reducing emissions.
Now, I can't imagine why anybody would want to be rolling back these standards when they literally save people money. They save consumers money. But the fact that Vermont is adopting these, I think, is a really good example of how VPIRG is able to have an impact beyond the borders of Vermont.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, we're a small state, right? And you might think if we pass a law here, what does that mean for the rest of the country? Itty bitty Vermont. But because we're such a small state, these manufacturers, they're not going to, spin up a whole second product line just for Vermont that meets those standards.
Yeah. And also just to underscore, like, how meaningful Vermont can be when it does, like, take the lead on certain things like this. And again, I joked we're going to potentially be second on the list, but since we're still talking about climate, just thinking back to the Climate Superfund, right? We were the first in the country to do that. Other states followed suit. I mean, just the effort of mobilizing and getting other folks in other states involved is hugely important. So yeah, you can say itty bitty Vermont, but we do make widespread impact all across the country.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's what I have for us on climate. There's much more I could say, but I think those are the two that I really wanted to highlight today.
Well, those are two pretty important ones. And what I've got to share, also pretty important, less about affordability, but I think equally relevant. We do a lot of consumer protection work here at VPIRG. That's actually how the PIRGs started. If folks are familiar with Ralph Nader, kind of the granddaddy of the PIRG movement, he was all about consumer protection. What we're focusing on this section is data privacy. I'm sure it will come as no surprise to our listeners that their personal data is constantly being collected, used, sold, often without your knowledge, and often it's being misused. Now, when your personal data is misused, this can lead to things like spam calls and targeted ads. That's fairly innocuous. What's a lot less innocuous is scams, bad financial outcomes, and serious risks like stalking and harassment. And at VPIRG, we believe that data privacy should be the default, not the exception. And right now, there is no data privacy law in Vermont. So we're hoping to change that. So at the end of the day, we think consumers should control how and with whom their data is shared. So flashback 2024, we actually passed what would have been the strongest data privacy law in the country. And surprise, surprise, Governor Scott vetoed it.
I guess he's not getting these spam calls.
I guess he must not be, because I get at least 4 a day, and the most annoying thing ever. And sometimes they're just trying to sell me something, but I've been getting a lot about Medicare lately. And I can imagine for folks who may be feeling the squeeze on healthcare premiums, on healthcare costs, somebody calling them up and saying, hey, we can save you a whole bunch of money with Medicare, they might not recognize that as a scam right away.
Right.
So back to this data privacy law. So the governor vetoes it. This is something you will hear frequently, governor vetoing our legislation. Unfortunately, the veto override vote failed in the Senate. So we're coming back for a second crack at it, pushing again for a strong data privacy bill in this biennium. And this will contain a couple key elements. Number one, data minimization. This means that companies can't collect more of your data than necessary. Number two, we want a ban on selling your sensitive data. And this can be things like your location, things about health, or other personal information like that, your social security number, data about minors. And then last but not least, in order to make this effective, we need strong enforcement. Consumers should be allowed to sue serious violators directly. Oftentimes, when you sign that user agreement that I'm sure all of you read all 20 pages of, you are agreeing to arbitration clauses and all sorts of other things that prevent you from taking action against the company if they mess with your data, if they sell it, if they, break their own rules. And so we want to get rid of that. We want to make sure that consumers have a right to action.
Well, great. I mean, I'm personally terrified by the thought of all of my personal information and data just floating around in the ether. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that. And this is an issue that we take seriously and we look a lot into. And so I think back to all of the stories that we've shared where our executive director, Paul, reaches out to us and tells us to go buy like $2,000 worth of gift cards.
Yep.
And like, I know I'm not the only one getting those emails, and that's just one tiny example. And I just, it's scary to think of how widespread this issue is.
For sure. And again, like there are obviously steps that people can take at home to minimize how their data is shared, how much, personal data they're sharing with these companies. But a lot at the end of the day, it's not on the consumer to protect themselves. Right? Like these are big corporations. They're doing this data collection intentionally. They know what they're doing.
Right. And they're keeping us in the dark intentionally.
And so you'll see this across a lot of VPIRG's campaigns with our theory of change being, it should not be up to the individual consumer to adjust their behavior to make up for what these large corporations are doing, right? Like recycling, really important that we recycle, but also even more important, these bottle manufacturers should not be making products that need to end up in a landfill.
Right, start at the source.
Exactly. So with this data privacy law, we're hoping to bring a little bit of that.
Yeah. Also, just before we hop over to the next topic, important to plug that we had a really great podcast episode in season 1 with consumer protection advocate Zach Tominelli. So if you want to dig in more to like what data privacy means, how you can better protect yourself, all of that good stuff, that's like an hour-long episode. Really worth it if anyone is interested.
That's definitely worth plugging for sure. And we will probably have Zach back on for this season to talk more about it.
We should for the updates.
Yeah. So consumer protection, all well and good. There are a lot of other things going on nationally and at the state level. And I'm a little worried about our democracy. And I think why?
Why would you be?
Why would we be?
I think it's going great.
You think it's going great? Okay, we're not doing any democracy work. On to the next thing. Jordan, what are we doing to safeguard our democracy here in Vermont?
Yeah, so first and foremost, here at VPIRG, we do not feel that corporations should have the same rights that people do, particularly when it comes to political spending.
Hot take.
Yeah, I guess so. Unfortunately, we see that often.
Yep.
We're seeing it all the time in elections. And so right now, we're backing legislation called Corporate Power Reset, which would modify corporate charters to exclude the power to engage in political spending. Basically, they would no longer be able to do that, right? Why? Because we do not want big corporate money influencing our elections any longer. So fairly straightforward, but it's really important that this crosses the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. And, since I was a kid, I've heard people railing against the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. That's what gave us the whole corporations are people. This is a great way to counterbalance that.
Absolutely, because corporations are not, in fact, people.
Yes.
So we need to prove that point for some reason, but we're working on it.
Well, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. And then beyond that, right now, we're unfortunately watching as the 1965 Voting Rights Act, or VRA, is being dismantled at the federal level. So common thread with all of my updates, things are being rolled back at the federal level, unfortunately. And just for context, the Voting Rights Act was established to eliminate illegal and discriminatory voting practices. So right now we're working to pass a Vermont Voting Rights Act to protect the rights of anyone in Vermont, but also traditionally underrepresented citizens, as well as their ability to vote effectively.
Good stuff. Yeah, Voting Rights Act, landmark piece of legislation, kind of unthinkable that it's being rolled back at the federal level, but hopefully we can get similar protections in place at the state level where the feds can't really touch it.
Right. And so I think that's also a common through line is what we're seeing happening on a federal level. Okay, how do we protect Vermonters regardless of what's happening there?
For sure.
All right. So we've covered a good amount of issues so far, but we've still got a few to go. I'm wondering what's happening here on environmental health.
Yes, the environment, very important, something VPIRG's worked on a whole lot. Unfortunately, a lot of these issues kind of get sidelined when there's a literal threat to our democracy,
Right.
but still pretty important. So we're still continuing that work. Folks might remember a couple of years ago, we did a big campaign against neonicotinoid pesticides that were threatening pollinators. We're now taking that to the next level. We're targeting a pesticide called paraquat. Funny name, not very funny pesticide, unfortunately.
Is it funnier than the neonicotinoid pesticide? I mean, that's a crazy name too.
Yeah. So I actually should correct myself. It's technically not a pesticide. It is an herbicide. And paraquat has been linked to Parkinson's disease and other very serious health harms. And it's actually banned in 70 countries.
Not this one.
Not this one, of course. That is something, if you've followed pesticides work, anything that VPIRG's done, or any of our ally organizations, you'll notice every single time one of these comes up, there'll be this line like, oh, it's banned in 80 countries, except the US. For some reason, we're not very good at banning these chemicals that pose serious threats to our farmers, to our communities, to our ecosystems. So we believe it is time to end its use in Vermont, and we're actually partnering with the Michael J. Fox Foundation and some other allies to protect public health, the environment, and our food system. So hopefully, by the end of this year, we're going to have some good news that we've gotten this pesticide banned.
Well, thank God. I'll be waiting for that because that's another thing I'm terrified about. So often we do these episodes, and I'm like, oh, that's scary, that's terrifying, that's horrifying. Really wanting some good news on that. But just to underline what you shared earlier, like, yes, neonicotinoids, terrible for pollinators. But as you also mentioned, some of the impacts of paraquat, I mean, really bad for human health, really bad for our ecosystems. It's pretty much widely spread, bad, bad, bad. And so there's just numerous reasons why we need to do better. We need to regulate. We need to remove these from use. I mean, all of these other countries are doing just that.
Yeah.
And so we need to do better.
Yeah, this bill's really a no-brainer. So pesticides, herbicides, toxic chemicals, these are not the only threats that our environment faces and not the only thing that we're working on right now. So another big area for us this year is going to be focusing on reducing the quantity and toxicity of plastic pollution.
Good. Don't
have to tell you, plastic is everywhere. You can't escape it. And unfortunately, most of it isn't recycled. They can be toxic, harmful to human health, and of course, the industry uses deceptive marketing to downplay the harm. Now, we're expecting plastic production to triple by 2060 if nothing changes. We've seen that the oil industry in particular sees plastic production as its future, as all these countries, and hopefully the US, start to transition to clean energy. Oil companies are moving resources into plastic production to make up that shortfall since folks are not burning as much oil anymore. So we're prioritizing policies to reduce plastic use and toxicity. We're supporting some legislation that was sponsored by Senator Ann Watson. And there's 3 key policy priorities to know about this. Number 1, we want to ban chemical recycling. Now you hear that. It's got recycling in the name. That must be a good thing, right?
No, wrong.
Wrong, exactly. So that's what the industry wants you to think.
It's also basically incineration, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's really not in any way recycling.
Yeah, that word recycling is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Yeah.
The other key priority is eliminating toxic DEHP in IV bags and tubing. It's a toxic phthalate that's used in medical supplies, linked to all sorts of negative health effects and increased drug resistance, 2 things you definitely don't want in your patients at a hospital. 2 other states have already taken action, and Vermont can follow their lead. So fingers crossed we can get that across the finish line. And last but not least, we want to prohibit microplastics in certain consumer products. What are microplastics? Exactly what it says on the tin, itty bitty pieces of plastic, because plastic doesn't biodegrade in the environment. When you throw something out, at best, it's just going to break into smaller and smaller pieces. Now, eventually, those little pieces can end up being ingested into your body through food. If they get small enough, they can become particulate in the air. You can breathe them in. We will actually have a really cool microplastics explainer video coming out soon. Maybe before this episode airs, we'll see. But keep an eye on our social channels for that. Anyway, microplastics, there's so much evidence of their harm to human health, to the environment. And we want to focus, as we've said before, on stopping this pollution at the source. So step one is banning the intentional addition of microplastics in non-rinse-off personal care products and other consumer goods. So base level, we want industry to stop producing microplastics intentionally. That doesn't do anything about microplastics that are generated when we throw stuff out, and this stuff degrades over time, but this is a good place to start.
I'm so uncomfortable just hearing all of this. And thinking about all of the microplastics just swirling around. Can I share my least favorite / favorite fun fact
about
microplastics? Okay. So I learned that there's actually a spoon's worth of microplastics floating around in our brains at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that crazy? That's
absolutely insane. And that's actually a key theme of this video we just made. It's nuts. Yeah. A study recently found that there could be as much as a plastic spoon's worth of plastic in your brain.
Anytime I'm having a brain fog day, I just blame
the spoon. You blame the spoon. Just
it's not me. It's the spoon.
I'm just having a spoon day. All right. So plastics are scary. Here's something a little less scary that we hopefully can make some progress on.
Please.
The things we eat, right? Mm-hmm. Important to have safe and healthy food. VPIRG this session is working to make food safer and healthier in Vermont. So that means things like banning synthetic dyes in school, removing toxic additives from all foods. These are things that will really benefit the entire population, but children in particular, as they're developing. Synthetic food dyes in particular are all over the kind of food that's marketed to children, junk food, candy, that kind of stuff. So we probably shouldn't be giving those to our kids in schools, and the state certainly should not be doing that. We also want to get rid of some toxic food additives, including, but not limited to, potassium bromate. I'm going to try to pronounce this. Propylparaben, many more. Many countries have already banned these additives. There are safer alternatives available.
But not ours.
But not us. California has already taken action, which is great. California frequently, big state, usually the first to take action on a lot of these. And Vermont tends to emulate and adopt the legislation that they pass there. So we can do the same thing here to prioritize public health.
Great. Let's get on that.
Let's do that. Fingers crossed.
Can I also say I am obsessed with the Yucca app? Are you familiar?
I'm not.
Okay. You should get it.
Do they sponsor us?
They should.
They should.
Because I've brought it up a few times at this point because I religiously use it. It's YUKA. Mm-hmm. And it's like a food health app. And so you can go into any grocery store and scan the item that you're looking to buy. And it will give you a full breakdown of like how healthy that food is, what additives are in it, what to watch out for, what's good about it, healthier alternatives. So if you're looking at something and you're not sure, that app is really, really helpful.
Awesome.
Also, I do recommend you just like look at the ingredients of something, but it's such a comprehensive breakdown of everything you scan, anything with a barcode. So
yeah, for
highly
sure.
Recommend.
And even if you don't use the app, read the ingredients of what you're buying.
Yeah, start with that.
It's most basic thing you can do. If there's more than like 5 things you can't pronounce, maybe reconsider buying it.
Yeah, that's a good pro tip, I think.
Alrighty. Well, environmental health is all well and good, but like I said before, that tends to get overshadowed by some of the more distressing things happening in Vermont and around the country. And I hear that we're actually taking on some of that work. So Jordan, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to having Paul on in just a minute so we could talk more broadly about what we're doing to fight authoritarianism here in the state. And that's a big item. That's a big to-do. So it's no easy feat. But there's an element of this that I do want to quickly talk about, and that's the work that we're doing in relation to immigrant rights, because Vermont is just as susceptible as any other state to what's going on, what we're seeing with ICE, what we're seeing in Minneapolis and Maine. It's happening here in Vermont too. And so I want to speak to that for just a moment, if possible.
Sure.
Okay, so there are two bills that are gaining a good amount of traction right now in Senate Judiciary, and I'd like to highlight those. So first is S208, the Law Enforcement Identification Bill. What this aims to do is to require that all law enforcement officers, both local and federal, identify themselves, either verbally and or through the prominent display of a badge number. So that's the really first important component to the bill. The second is that it would prohibit the use of facial coverings to conceal identity. So obviously there are certain exemptions here for health and safety reasons, but by and large what we're seeing all around the country is really just trying to conceal identity and to make it easier to get away with things that are just not okay.
And to clarify, this mask ban, this is just for law enforcement.
Yeah, just for law enforcement. But again, both local and federal. So. And then the second thing I want to talk about is S209, which is the Sensitive Locations Bill. And so what that would do is strengthen protections in sensitive community spaces. So what does that mean? When we think of places like schools, healthcare facilities, shelters, other essential public spaces, we want to make sure that those are safe or protected spaces for all individuals in the state. So what that means is an ICE agent cannot come in and detain an individual for being there. And so we actually already have a law in place that prohibits this type of action, both in court buildings and at the Vermont State House. So that's already passed. That's been a law for a few years now. And so really what we're trying to do is to add on to that and to create a greater list of sensitive locations, secure and safe spaces for all individuals in the state.
Yeah, that sounds really important. Vermont has not been immune from this increase in ICE activity. We talked about it on the show last year when Columbia students were being detained by immigration officials just for practicing their right to free speech. So hopefully some more good news to come on that front. But I think it's a good time to bring in Paul and we can talk a little bit more in depth about this and kind of what our vision for the legislative session is. So
yeah, I think we should. Let's go get him.
Yeah, let's go get him. We'll see you after the break. All right, we're back with VPIRG's executive director, Paul Burns. Paul has been executive director of VPIRG for the past 25 years and is an experienced advocate across pretty much all of our legislative issues. So I've been here for 5 legislative sessions. Paul, you've been here for many more. What is different about this year?
Well, of course, every legislative session is different. This is the start of my 26th legislative session with VPIRG, which is kind of hard to imagine, honestly. But and while they're all different, honestly, this is one of a kind. Nobody living has experienced all the things that we are experiencing in this country right now. The challenges that we face that are kind of qualitatively different from those that we have experienced before. I mean, this isn't even in early 2026. This isn't even like the first year or two of the first Trump administration. And this is. I think anybody who's paying attention now understands that there are serious, credible threats to our democratic republic in what we're seeing out of the Trump administration and a Congress that is utterly unwilling to stand up to him. And that presents problems for us here in Vermont as it does to Americans anywhere, and honestly, in some respects, to the rest of the world. So we have recognized that at VPIRG, and as many Vermonters have, that there is a responsibility that we have to try to do something where we can to press back against this rising sense of authoritarianism in defense of our democracy. And we've always stood for democracy, pressing for a robust democratic process with free and fair elections that engage as many people as possible, that allow the voices of regular folks not to be drowned out by, large, big moneyed special interests. All those issues are still there, but there are kind of fundamentally different problems and concerns when you have a a president with, a paramilitary force operating in cities and states across the country, and threatening people, intimidating folks, physically harming them, even killing, law-abiding people. They happen to be citizens, a couple who have, recently been killed by federal agents, but it doesn't matter. Like this is unbelievable, and I don't want anything that we do to downplay that significant threat. And that is just different than any other start of a legislative session that I have experienced. It's overriding, many of the other interests and concerns we have, though I would say, fundamentally, we still need to continue to fight for the public interest in the many ways that we have, out of a belief that we can survive this too, that we will be successful pushing back against some of the worst of the harms and threats that we are seeing. And that's kind of the lay of the land from the big picture sense. Yes, we are engaged in ways we never have before. We never could have imagined that we would have to in the past to prevent the kind of threats that we are seeing to our democracy and to our freedoms. But we still are a public interest organization that cares about protecting the health, the well-being, the pocketbooks of Vermonters. And so all of that work continues as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, my understanding is that we are helping in this fight against authoritarianism, not just in the legislative arena, but beyond. Can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, we've always had a range of tools in the toolkit, I guess, in all the kinds of advocacy that we do. We're an organization that operates within the State House. We have our advocates who are over there who dress like this and are over there every day during a legislative session. But we have organizers and we have members in every single legislative district in the state, and we get those members by knocking on doors in the summer. And so, our viewers and listeners will, many of them appreciate the fact that they have had somebody knock on their door in the summer and seek, engagement and support from folks. And it is that membership list that allows us to work so effectively in communities around the state and connect people to their legislators wherever they live at just the right time, hopefully with just the right message, so that they can make a real difference. We do that work in the State House, but there's all sorts of amazing organizing happening. And again, I'm sure folks are aware of it, at least in some sense. People have seen the big rallies, the No Kings 1 and 2, and by the way, there's a third that has been scheduled, right? So March 28th, mark your calendars. We're involved in that kind of organizing work, but we're also involved in more day-to-day or weekly events that are happening. There are so many different organizations, the Indivisible groups and 5051 and Migrant Justice and so many others. I want to give them full credit. And a lot of times there are individuals who are participating and even leading organizations like this now who wouldn't have considered themselves organizers, professional or voluntary or any other way, 6 months, certainly a year ago. But they're involved because they believe that this threat is real and that they can do something about it. And I think that's kind of taking the power back or using the power that we all have. So if we can play a role in helping to connect those people, those good ideas, and help them flourish, and be more effective, that's one of the things that we can do with a staff of great professional organizers and having those connections around the state. I'm so pleased, honestly, that we can use the resources, the experience that we have to try to make people more effective at standing up to things that are, a genuine threat to their way of life right now. So some of it is, yes, policy and trying to get bills passed and wearing ties in the State House, but a lot of it is out on the evenings, on the weekends, communicating with folks all the time in far-flung parts of Vermont, and then even outside of Vermont too, to make sure that people are connected to national calls and trainings. And again, all of this is going to be necessary. And I think that, so there's organizing, there's speaking out, there's showing up. And by the way, I just think showing up at rallies and events is quite important because you see others who are doing the same. And to me, at least, it's always a great burst of energy that I get from that, knowing that, I'm not alone in thinking this. And So I think I want to encourage people to do that. And I think that more and more there'll be other ways using our pocketbooks, thinking about economic issues and how we can make a difference in those ways too. So there'll be lots outside of the State House. I know this is focused on the legislative stuff, but all of that I think is important to note too.
Absolutely. Some great organizing work happening. And Jordan, you're pretty directly involved in that. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to echo everything that Paul just mentioned, but the outpouring of community support has been incredible. As you mentioned, trainings, coalition meetings, large-scale rallies, all of this is happening constantly. And also to your earlier point, it's true that this is a time like no other. I can't tell you how many people have said that exact same thing to me across all ages and demographics, that this is just unlike anything they've seen before. And so I think that call to action is really resonating with folks, and they want to get out. They want to go to the rallies. And again, No Kings 3, that's March 28th. Mark your calendars. We're going to be promoting that pretty widely. And it's just also important. And we're going to continue to do that work. We had a great coalition call last night with Representative Leonora Dodge, and she spoke to the legislative components, but also how that relates to the community organizing and why both are so important. So I know for myself, I'm sure for you too, like I'm so grateful to be working on these issues because it feels so incredibly pressing.
It is very empowering to come into work every day and know that you're, in the thick of it, taking action, doing work that matters. Now, if you want to hear about these actions, make sure to get on VPIRG's mailing list so you don't miss anything. Every Monday, we send out, called the Democracy Vermont Digest, where we update you on all the events coming up related to our fight against authoritarianism. So make sure you're subscribed. So, Paul, earlier you talked about stuff that we're doing outside the State House. Now, I understand that VPIRG is involved in some of the legal action against the Trump administration. Can you talk a little bit about our involvement there?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that back. The Trump administration, the Justice Department, has sued Vermont's Secretary of State in one matter to try to get the private voter data files that every state keeps. This is on everybody who is registered to vote in the state. And it includes certain private information, including the last digits of your social security number, address, and so forth. And there is no legitimate reason for the Trump administration to get their hands on this data. Elections are run, federal elections in this country are run at the state level, and that the Constitution makes that clear. It's not the federal government that runs the elections process. It's up to the states. And there is concern that this administration might use that information for some not very good purposes. And I don't know exactly, but what I do know is that this is an administration that, is once again focused on the results of the 2020 election and sending the FBI to Georgia and collecting, the ballots in Georgia. If you think that this administration is going to do that for an honest and true purpose, I think you're not paying attention, and I know you two are, but it's a deadly serious threat. I mean, the FBI is literally doing this now about an election that was decided and also reviewed, and there were 60 lawsuits that the Trump election team brought at that time and lost all of them basically, and they do not tell the truth. I don't think they have good purposes in mind when they try to get voter data from Vermont or dozens of other states. And so in this case, VPIRG has stepped up to intervene in that process in federal court, working with the Brennan Center for Justice and the Campaign Legal Center, a couple of terrific national powerhouses of public interest law. And we're the intervener in that case to try to assist the Attorney General in defending the Secretary of State, who did it exactly the right thing in this case, which is to say, no, we're not going to turn our data over to you, the Trump Justice Department, and we're going to keep that data here and run elections, continue to operate them in a free, fair, and effective way. So that's just one of the areas of litigation that we're involved in to try to push back against this as well. So again, we're looking at all the tools that we might bring to bear, and that's just another important one.
Yeah, well, it's awesome that we're able to take such a direct role too and help out. We are at about time. So before we close out, Paul, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
just that this is still a state where people can make a difference, maybe more of a difference than they realize. So, communicating with elected officials, as you say, signing up, making sure they're getting regular updates from us. But this is a time for engagement. If you are ever going to be involved, I really think this is it. And so across the wide range of issues that we work on, it's protecting against authoritarianism, trying to pass some legislation that I know you spoke about in that area, or just trying to protect our health, our children's health, our affordability, looking at healthcare and prescription drugs and ability for people to get involved in clean energy. I mean, these are all excellent ideas that I think can really make life better here, safer, healthier, and more affordable. And that's a pretty good agenda, and I'm really happy to be part of it. As you say, we have a fantastic team, but the only thing that makes us really effective is when our members and the people of the state get engaged. And so that's my takeaway, is get engaged now.
Get engaged now. You heard it here. Well,
I love it.
These are dark times, but glad that VPIRG continues to be a light during them. Thanks so much for coming on, Paul.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Such, an inspirational message from Paul that even in these dark times, we're still taking action, fighting the good fight.
Yeah, absolutely. It remains so important. I'm glad he spoke to it to the extent that he did. I know all of us at VPIRG are really feeling that pressure, but also the support, again, that we're seeing within the community, and just this constant call to action, the call for unity and responding to this in an effective way.
Yeah, I mean, we're bombarded with awful news every day, and it's important to grab onto those little moments of hope to keep your sanity, for sure.
Not to remove that feeling of hope for you in this moment, but I do want to mention that as we were actively shooting this today, February 4th, we did receive an urgent call from Migrant Justice because yet another individual was detained here in the state. So I just want to mention that because it's, again, yet another example of what we're seeing and why it's so important that we're talking about this. So again, sorry to sort of steal your thunder there, but I think it needs to be said.
Absolutely. And, Vermont is not immune to the ICE problem.
Right.
Right. We're seeing them all over the place here. So folks, be careful. Hopefully we'll have some updates on this individual's story in the coming days. Make sure that you're subscribed to VPIRG's mailing list if you want to hear those.
Yeah, because all of the information I have right now, his name is Stephen Tendo. There was a rally that took place very quickly over at the St. Albans facility, but right now, as far as we know, he is headed to New Hampshire. So there might be a call to action coming soon to our members, but as of right now, that's all we know.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll be able to update you with some more information as we get it. All right. Well, that wraps up episode 1 of season 2 of Vermont's Voice.
Quite a lot that we covered there. Yeah.
Big episode. Stay tuned for more content. We will have deeper dives into almost everything we talked about today later on in the season, in the year, as these bills move through the legislative session. Want to quickly shout out our producer, Katie Trottier, who's behind the scenes running tech. Couldn't do this without her.
No, she's great.
She is. And
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
She's hating this.
Once again, my name's Elijah Kushen, Media Director here at VPIRG.
And I'm Jordan Heiden, Democracy Vermont Campaign Director. And you've been watching Vermont's Voice.
Yeah, see you next time.